Welcome, everybody. I've always felt it a little bit of a crime to stop before the gong was done ringing. And I thoroughly enjoyed the gong, so good morning to everybody. Welcome to Eastrose on Memorial Day weekend. We have a service today that honors Memorial Day and the people that have served in that capacity. We are often called to sacrifice in times of both conflict and peace. The following message is from Harry Truman, sent to the returning troops after World War II and received and shared by David Taylor, a past active member of this fellowship. To you who answered the call of our country and served in the armed forces to bring about the total defeat of the enemy, I extend the heartfelt thanks of a grateful nation. As one of the nation's finest, you undertook the most severe task one can be called upon to perform. Because of your demonstrated fortitude, resourcefulness, and calm judgment necessary to carry out that task, we now look to you for leadership and example in further extending our country in peace. Signed, Harry Truman. Welcome. We are glad you are here by Amanda Schuer. If this is the first time you are here, or the 101st time, we are glad you are here. If you carry the weight of the weary world on your shoulders, or if you entered the doors with a song in your heart and a skip in your step, we are glad you are here. If you're the loudest voice in the town square, or the subtle hand behind the scenes, we are glad that you are here. If you have failed once or 1,000 times, we are glad that you are here. If you sing like angels or mumble behind the hymnal, we are glad you are here. This community is what it is because of your presence. So welcome to this space of love, support, justice, compassion, fellowship, and worship. We are glad you are here. Good morning to everybody attending, however you're attending. Welcome to Eastrose Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I am Keene Clay, your worship leader for today. Today's speakers are our friends, Deanna and Ryan Hall. They live in Sandy, Oregon with their sons Burdock and Hans. Today they share ways to heal our hurts and grow our emotional strength and build more resilience into our relationships by exploring our history. It's time now to turn and greet our neighbors, including our friends who are tuning in online. So when we first get up, if everybody would turn and face the clock back there, there's cameras, and we can wave to all of the people that are online and then have at it with everybody else in the chapel. Everybody say hi. There will be plenty of time for more talk and bonding and getting together after the service for coffee. And we hope you do stay and enjoy that time. Eastrose is located in the homeland of the Upper Chinookan people. We acknowledge in particular the Multnomah and Shellhala bands of Chinooks. Although they have a distinct identity and very well attested history, the Chinooks are not formally recognized as a tribal nation by our government and request our assistance in moving recognition forward. For our online guests, if you would like to share a joy or concern later, just put your joy or concern in the chat. It will be brought up to us, and we will go ahead and read it from the podium here. We now have a TV in the nursery, and you can observe the service online if you need to leave the chapel for any reason. We'll now have Deanna come up and light the chalice. Chalice is right here. Go from the side. The chalice reading this morning is words from Jennifer Grayson. It's called Drawn Together. We come together every week, bound not by creed, not by or a mutual desire to please one God or many gods, yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together, matters. We light this chalice together with the knowledge that love, not fear, can change this world. Please stand now and we'll sing the opening hymn, number 148. Those who can stand, please do. The rest, please sit and enjoy. Lift every voice and sing. The words will be on the screen. Marjorie's story.
Yeah. Deanna and Hans.
We can have kids who come front, we have kids who come front.
Yeah, I mean, children of all ages. Okay, so, I'm here to tell you Marjorie's story. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Marjorie. She lived in a small village during the Great War, World War I. In 1915, her father was a brave soldier who went to fight for their country. Marjorie and her mother waited every day for her father to return. One day, Marjorie's mother answered the door and saw two soldiers standing there. They looked serious and somber, and Marjorie knew something was wrong. The soldiers told Marjorie's mother that her husband had been killed in action, and they presented her with this medal. Marjorie's mother was devastated. She looked at the medal and said, "I don't want your trinkets, I just want my husband back." She threw the medal down and began to cry. Marjorie, who had been watching from the corner, saw the medal fall to the ground. She scurried over and picked it up. She knew how much her father had loved serving his country, and she didn't want his sacrifice to go unnoticed. Marjorie went to her room and put the medal in a special box under her bed. Every day, she would take out the medal and admire it, thinking of her father and all the brave soldiers who fought in the war. Years passed, and Marjorie grew up to be a strong and determined woman. She never forgot about her father and the sacrifices he made for their country. She told her children and her grandchildren about him and showed the medal that she had kept safe for so many years. Marjorie's father may no longer be with them, but his bravery and love for his country will always be remembered. The medal may have been a small trinket to Marjorie's mother, but to Marjorie it was a symbol of the love and sacrifice that her father made for their country.
Could I ask who the pictures are again?
So this is Marjorie.
Yeah, Marjorie on the left, and that's her mother. Her name was Kit. She was a chimney sweeper. And the one on the left is Ernest Alfred Bell. I'll be talking about him. And that's Kit on the right.
Okay. Thank you.
And with that, we will sing the children out. The bridge. Middle view.
We will now pass the baskets to receive your gifts in support of this fellowship and to support our nonprofit sharing partner of this quarter, East County Rising Community Projects. This is a grassroots organization energizing East Multnomah County residents to create equitable, livable communities centering underrepresented and marginalized people. In their vision is a vibrant, sustainable community with equitable opportunities where all of our needs are met. For those participating online, you can find donation options on the screen or through the Eastrose website. First-time visitors, you are our guests. Please let the basket pass. Your presence today is our gift to us. As we pass the baskets, please remember, in some small way, our gifts make the world a better place. In some small way, we honor the gifts of those that have come before. In some small way, we strengthen the fabric of hope and justice that we support. We give because it feels right and we want to give something of ourselves. We give because we have chosen to be something larger, part of something larger than ourselves. So now, pass the baskets. Please remain seated while we sing hymn number 180, or number 87 in the gray hymnal, Nearer My God to Thee. It'll be verses 1, 3, and 5. No?
Joys and concern.
Oh, that's not on my list at this point. It's on the next page. But we can do that. Number 87, stay seated. Words will be on the screen. Now have Ryan come up and give us his reflection.
Hello. Hey there. So they've said many things about history. History repeats itself, or it never repeats itself, but it often rhymes. My personal favorite, that history is the autobiography of a madman. Personal history is tied up in world events, and it's interesting for me to see the ripple effects that global events and conflicts have on our families, their story, and our own. You don't even need to look that far back to notice that many of our families have been touched in one way or another by conflict. Much of human migration is sparked due to fleeing conflict or as a direct result of it. The story that Deanna read about Marjorie was my great-grandmother. She and her mother immigrated to Canada after World War I, following the death of her beloved husband, Ernest Alfred Bell. He went missing in 1915 during the Battle of Loos, near the Belgian border. Memorial Day is a day to remember fallen soldiers killed in war. It's a day of remembrance that started after the American Civil War. Memorial Day became a day to honor the fallen in World War I specifically. The symbol of Memorial Day is one of the red poppy. The poppy grows in a flat area called Flanders, near the French and Belgian border, outside of the Belgian town called Ypres. On the eve of Memorial Day, let's do justice to those who were killed. And let's go back and look at the Great European War, as it was called. After all, the aftermath of this conflict created the blueprint for our modern world, and it's worth remembering how we got here. It was one of the most horrible experiences for individual soldiers that I've ever studied. And I don't know if you can tell by now, but I've studied these topics a lot. Areas of France and southwestern Belgium are uninhabitable to this day because of that conflict. For individuals living in this environment, it was like living in an open-air graveyard. And for the people who lived through it, it permanently scarred them. There were paintings done after the war that showed soldiers surrounded by bodies. And it wasn't so much that you'd feel sorry for the dead, but that you'd feel sympathy for those who lived. Many of our favorite 20th century writers were impacted by this conflict, like T.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. In August 1914, in the first month of the war, there were over 1 million casualties, stunning Europe. No one was prepared for what modern warfare was going to be like. French infantry corporal Louis Bartas said, "We've created hell on earth." The Ypres battlefield, the one near Flanders where the poppy grows, near the French and Belgian border, was fought over on 3 separate occasions. Soldiers were apparently able to smell the battlefield from miles away. From all of the unburied bodies that could have died yesterday, last week, a year ago, or years ago. And you, as a soldier, are forced to live in this environment. There's a famous story of Ernest Shackleton, of when the English explorer traveled to Antarctica in 1914, right when the war was breaking out. Shackleton was interested in keeping tabs on the conflict. As he and his crew got stranded in the ice, he couldn't follow along with regular communication. He and his crew would eventually make it to South Georgia to a whaling station in 1916. And Shackleton's first words on reaching the whaling station after 18 months away made it into the history books. "My name is Shackleton. Tell me when the war was over." The reply, "The war is not over. Europe is mad. The world is mad. Millions are dead." Of course, there are a ton of books written about this stuff. I have a couple favorites, though. Barbara Tuchman's book, The Guns of August. In it, she details so brilliantly the build-up to World War I and the following month of August 1914. She details how the conflict progressed beyond humans' ability to control it, one event leading to another, and as if pushing a ball down a hill but trying to contain it. John F. Kennedy Jr., during the Cuban Missile Crisis, gave Barbara Tuchman's book, The Guns of August, to every one of his senior staff, warning of how events can slip out of humans' ability to control it. The First World War was no different. In fact, it's a shining example of this idea that humans can lose control, and events gain their own momentum. We then become victims of its momentum. The war changed labor, most notably for women. With the men being at the front, women were now desperately needed to produce munitions and armaments and to do their part for the war effort. After the war, women's suffrage in the U.S. was passed into law in 1920 as a recognition of women's increasing role in the workforce. The center of global finance switched from London to New York, and you can just imagine a giant vacuum cleaner hose coming from the United States and sucking up over 100 years of civilizational wealth from Europe during the conflict. Europe went into August of 1914 with czars and kings, and by the end of 1919, the following empires were now extinct and relegated to the annals of history. Tsar Nicholas and the 500-year-old Romanov dynasty of Russia, the 400-year-old Habsburg dynasty of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the 800-year-old Ottoman Empire, and Kaiser Wilhelm's Kaiserreich. None of them foresaw how devastating the conflict would be. But it's common to look at conflicts from a satellite view, and this is the reason why I think history as a topic causes people's eyes to glaze over. Looking at the dates and the battles causes us to lose sight of the experience of the people who actually lived through it. In Peter Hart's book, a wonderful book called The Great War, he uses some absolutely heartbreaking last letters home, and one of them is from a Captain Charles May from the 22nd Manchester Regiment, and he's writing to his wife right before he goes over the top in the Battle of the Somme. And again, think about their experiences and imagine how it would affect you just writing a letter like this. I always thought it would be a permanent scar on your psyche, even if you got the proverbial reprieve from the governor. And from Captain Charles May, right before he goes over the top, I'm going to have Deanna read.
He has me read the hard parts. I must not allow myself to dwell on the personal. There is no room for it here. Also, it is demoralizing. But I do not want to die. Not that I mind it for myself. If it be that I am to go, I am ready. But the thought that I may never see you or our darling baby again turns my bowels to water. I cannot think of it with even the semblance of equanimity. My one consolation is the happiness that has been ours. Also, my conscience is clear that I've always tried to make life a joy to you. I know at least that if I go, you will not want. That is something. But it is the thought that we may be cut off one another, which is so terrible, and that our babe may grow up without knowing her and without my knowing her, and without her knowing me. It is difficult to face, and I know your life without me will be dull blank. Yet you must never it become wholly so. For to you will be left the greatest charge in all the world, the upbringing of our baby. God bless that child. She is the hope of life to me. My darling, au revoir. It may well be that you will only have to read these lines as ones of passing interest. On the other hand, they may well be my last message to you. If they are, know through all your life that I loved you and baby with all my heart and soul, that you two sweet things were just all the world to me. I pray God I may do my duty, for I know whatever that may entail, you will not have it otherwise.
And with remarkable sensitivity, Peter Hart adds a postscript and says, Charles May, the loving husband of Bessie May and the father to baby Pauline, would indeed be killed the next day. He is buried in the Danzig Alley British Cemetery. Small-scale tragedies litter the history of war, sad reminders that the necessity of war ruined the lives of millions. It's as I've said, all this pain from this war and all wars are like pebbles dropped in water, and the ripples outward effect to the rest of these societies. When you have millions of people affected like this, the ripple affects tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of people. For a while there, the Somme becomes one of these pebbles that's like ground zero for a huge ripple effect that will affect Britain even to this day, a permanent scar on British society, hence their observance of the poppy still to this day. I try to think about what mental state I would be in after writing a letter like that. And when you think about tens of millions of people, young people mostly, being in situations where they're writing a letter like that, how does that change you? I mean, there are going to be noticeable changes in this generation of people in the 4 years during the First World War and afterwards. But understanding what they went through is part of what makes history so compelling to me. And again, it's part of what makes me astounded by our ancestors. I try to think about my generation being in a situation like that, and I feel like all of us would just turn to the officer and say, he can't take us all down, we're not going to do that. But Charles May did. Their courage is what inspires me to do better, to be better. There's a wonderful paragraph by historian Eric Dorn Brose, who tries to describe why it isn't gratuitous to talk about this, and why it's part of being astounded by our ancestors. Here's what Brose writes. Most historians today depart from the traditional practice of omitting casualty figures. What was once left out for respect of the dead, and to avoid any decent hit at criticizing or questioning the sacrifices they made, is now included, in order to illuminate the magnitude of the horror that men faced. By citing numbers, in other words, historians begin the process of turning back towards describing what the war was really like. And they do this despite the understanding loathing of the veterans themselves, to remember or to speak about traumatic experiences that they have tried, usually unsuccessfully, to suppress. The problems that historians encounter with casualty numbers, especially astronomical numbers produced in 20th century wars, is that numbers have a numbing quality to them. Although shocking to read initially, they quickly lose descriptive effectiveness as minds fail to grasp horror in the abstract. In order to do historical justice to the combat on the ground, therefore, it is necessary to go beyond the numbers, the gruesome eyewitness accounts. Shaking off criticism that to go there is gratuitous, the Great War can only be understood if all of its aspects are exposed. Dimensions of the front experience that not only affected soldiers' morale and eventually the outcome of the war, but also home fronts and their critically important willingness to shoulder the war effort. All wars are horrible, Brose writes. Tragedies for the dead, family, friends, hobbling and sometimes disfiguring injuries for others. turning wives, children, parents into caregivers for life, and psychological minefields for veterans who may have escaped death and injury, but not the terrible memories with which loved ones now, too, are forced to relive. The Great War was especially hellacious, however, because it was the first to unleash the full mechanized fury of sophisticated industrial technology. My father was a combat veteran. He was a Navy corpsman. He served with the 1st Marine Division during the Vietnam War. He spent his 21st birthday in a foxhole near a town called Chu Lai. Excuse me. He was wounded by a friendly grenade, actually. The fragment's still lodged in his leg. He sometimes sets off the airport scanner. He finished his tour in a surgical field hospital and came home and became a physician's assistant, where he would open his own practice in Grandview, Washington, and would occasionally teach at the University of Washington Medical School to train ER staff because he had more trauma experience than most stateside doctors. When I was about 10 years old, I woke up in the middle of the night. And sometimes I would go down to my parents' room and climb into bed. This particular night, I climbed in on my dad's side. And he shot up and grabbed me by the arms and shook me hard. And that's when my mom said to me, "Daddy was in a war." He gave me a challenge coin, which I have here. I carry it around sometimes. It's a coins for veterans to show each other, and supposedly whoever doesn't have their coin has to buy the other one a beer. That's kind of the thing. So I said to him, "I wasn't in Vietnam. How could I carry this around with me?" He said, You have been. You've seen it." In my own personal search for meaning, I was obviously impacted by my father. Over time and throughout the years, I became fascinated by and eager to understand the extremes of the human experience. How could living through something leave such lasting damage on a person, and as a result, their families, communities, and societies? And knowing what soldiers and people who are asked to fight go through is what makes me so vehemently against war. I turn now to the current situation in Ukraine. I wrote this sermon months ago, and looking back at my material for the first time in a couple months, I feel exactly the same way as I did months ago. I feel for the people of Ukraine. I feel for the unwilling Russian conscripts. I feel for the civilians needlessly destroyed by Putin's will. I feel for the children who in 5, 10, 20 years will still be stepping on landmines placed during this conflict. I even feel for the architecture and the buildings, the cultural relics like the beautiful Soviet mosaics littered throughout the Ukraine, now destroyed by indiscriminate bombing. The war in Ukraine is an illegal and immoral war pushed by Putin. The conditions on the ground, though, are eerily similar to the conditions experienced in the First World War. Trenches, static positions, lead soldiers to experience terrible living conditions on the ground. To what end? What are we doing to try to stop the suffering? Where is the off-ramp? Think about Charles May again, that man writing his last farewell letter to his wife. More war means more people have to send messages like that back home. The ripple effects of war ripple outward and impact societies for years and years. We're also escalating the conflict with a nuclear-armed superpower. What if events grow out of control like they did in World War I? Our hubris makes us believe that we will always have control on events. I feel for the people of Ukraine. The longer this goes on, the more people will die. We're playing a dangerous game, and no one seems to notice, question, or care. Remember the historian Eric Dornbro's, "All wars are horrible." What are we doing to stop this one? It's taking our eye off the ball a little bit geopolitically, though. It's terribly short-sighted. Russia has now gone into the waiting arms of China, two powers that are now closer as a result of our involvement in the Ukraine war. We're also depleting our stockpile of munitions and armaments, which could be an issue if China decides to attack Taiwan in 2025, like it's been suggested might happen. The U.S. has pledged support of Taiwan. I get it. The U.S. is the global superpower and the world's policeman. So we have to jump in and defend countries that are being attacked or invaded by a stronger power, right? But it doesn't always work like that. The United States, for instance, has been supporting Saudi Arabia's war in Yemen for the past couple of years, and no one seems to be talking about that one. And I think that's also inhumane and vile. I'd like the U.S. to have more of a role in brokering peace around the world instead of helping fuel violence. Ask yourself, how many people had to die for South Vietnam? How many people had to die for Afghanistan to make it safe? How many people have to die for Donbass? How many dreams never realized? How many families forever changed? Is a piece of land in Vietnam, Afghanistan, or Ukraine worth? On this Memorial Day, I'd like us all to remember what the red poppy on your lapel really means. Remember Captain Charles May. Remember all the people just like him, and all the stories that would tear your heart out if you knew him. And remember that you're cut from that cloth. I'll end with my favorite poem from Memorial Day, and it's by John McCrae. In Flanders fields, the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow. Loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with our foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. Thank you.
Let that sink in. Now do the closing hymn number 169 in the great hymnal. We shall overcome. Stand and sing along, please. Now that we will extinguish our chalice. This is the message of our faith by Maureen Calora, I think it is. This is the message of our faith, to act with passion in the face of injustice, to love with courage in the midst of pain. This is the meaning of the chalice flame. May it power our hearts until we are together again.
We came to Eastrose today in order to support some higher purpose, recognizing the need for fellowship, and understanding that we are stronger, healthier, and more effective together. Conflict asks much of us. Should not supporting peace ask the same? In some small way, go and change the world. Follow along silently, if you will. For the next song, you're welcome to stay seated. Or sing if you want. Thank you.
Okay, I gotta figure out where I am.
When we leave, we must go forth and make a joyful noise. All right, it's time for announcements. The official program is over, and it is time to just share what we have going on in our community. I'll start off with a couple of things. There's a congressional meeting slated for June 4th after the service.
Congregational,
Okay.
I said the same thing last week.
Congregational meeting, yes. It will be approving our budget for the following year and just kind of keeping up to date on the business of the fellowship.
And electing new board members.
And electing new board members and honoring those that are leaving. There is a flower communion that same day, so put it on your calendar to bring flowers, everybody. This is not just a one person bring flowers, let's fill the hall. So whatever you can, wherever you get, if your neighbors have nice flowers, go get them. Second thing is put this on your calendar. It's getting closer and we need to start promoting it and being aware of it. Will Horniak will be here on the evening of Saturday, the 17th of June from 7 o'clock to whenever he's tired of speaking. But he will be doing poetry and other readings and stories. He's exceptional. And his theme is in the name of the Father. So it is in honor of Father's Day and the position of fathers and the importance of fathers. Our friend Larry is moving on from the maintenance duties that he has so well done for the last 10 years. He deserves our great appreciation and thanks, but he leaves a void and we need somebody who will oversee the maintenance of the building and facility. We have somebody that will take care of the grounds and outdoors, but we need somebody that will be the point person on taking care of the facilities. So if you were willing to take on that responsibility, contact Cynthia. Planning for Robin's welcome. Do you want to make a comment on that?
Yeah, I'm getting together a group. I already have one volunteer contacted me to do some planning around the big welcome for Reverend Robin. We'll have the kids do create a big welcome poster. The kids all do the art and everything for the lobby. We'd like to organize a potluck so that we have lots of different dishes and organize and get the word out and encourage everybody to come like we did for farewell for Reverend Patty. Fill the place with people who maybe haven't been here in a while, get them interested in being a new minister. So if you want to work on that, and there'll be some decorating and stuff too. Just let me know, and we'll plan a meeting sometime. Get together on Zoom or something.
This is something from me, and it's just, I haven't done it yet, but I will do it as soon as the service is over. There will be a tray of dahlia starts in the lobby. Anybody that wants some, take them all. I want them to go away. I want to have new homes. I planted all that I'm going to plant. I need to get rid of the leftovers, and there's a lot of really nice little leftovers there. Was there anything online? Any announcements? Thank you. And next Sunday, the service will be Greg from the Salem UU Church. He will talk about how you can universal love and justice be the values of humanity. And Carol Knox will be our worship leader. Is there anything else needs to be said for the good of the order? Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Deanna. Thank you to our workers in the back and to Barbara for being here when Mary can't, and for the other people that helped out in getting this organized. We had me as a first-time worship leader and Deanna and Ryan as first-time speakers here, and so there was a certain amount of confusion as to what we were doing, but I think we did it. So. No more than usual. Not more than usual. Anyway, in closing, coffee is coming, I assume coffee is coming. And those on YouTube, please switch to the Zoom cafe conversation for further conversation. And so we are done. Until next week. Thank you.